have to choose who you want to go with. I had no idea how I was going to make that decision. I can't choose between you both, I said. What if you make it some sort of competition? Said Louise. Then whoever wins gets to take you to the prom. Yes, that's a good idea, said Sam. You will have to decide what the competition will be, Louise went on. I didn't know what to say. Everyone was crowding around me. Choose, 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 they chanted. Eventually, I said the first thing that popped into my head. Okay, a running race around the school field. The twins both agreed to race each other, so after school that afternoon, we all headed down to the school field. Louise counted down. 3, 2, 1, go! The twins set off sprinting down the field. They were neck and neck as they turned the first corner. It was going to be a tight race. I watched as they turned the last corner and were running on the final leg towards us. Sean started to take the lead. They were in the last 10 meters and Sean was still ahead of Sam. Suddenly, Sean went flying to the ground and fell flat on his face. Sam had tripped him up on purpose. Sam sprinted past him and through the finish line. I couldn't believe what he had done. He had won the race, but he had only done so by cheating. There was no way I was going to go to the prom with a cheat. I walked over to Sam. I'm sorry, Sam. I'm going to go to the prom with Sean. I don't like cheaters, I said. I went and helped Sean to get up. I want to go to the prom with you, Sean, I told him. He smiled at me. Thank you, he said. On the night of the prom, I sat in my parents' living room waiting nervously for Sean to arrive. I felt like a princess in my beautiful pink dress. My mom had helped me with my hair and makeup. I had been looking forward to the night for ages. A big black limo pulled up in front of my house. I think your date has arrived. You look beautiful, Tessa, my dad said proudly. I went outside. Sean held the car door open for me and I climbed inside the limo. You look gorgeous, Tessa, he said. I felt like I was dreaming. I had never been so happy in my life before. We had so much fun at the prom. Sean held my hand and told me jokes to make me laugh. Come on, let's dance, he said, pulling me to the dance floor. We had only been on the dance floor for a couple of minutes when I heard the shouting. I wondered what on earth was going on. Suddenly, I saw Sam standing at the entrance. He was looking around him. Where are you? Where are you? He screamed. When he saw us, he came running over. Tessa, that's Sam you're with. I'm Sean. I looked at them both. What are you talking about? I asked. He locked me in my room and threw away the keys so he could take you to the prom instead of me. Sam or Sean screamed. I wasn't sure who was who. He's lying. I'm the real Sean. He's just saying that to confuse you, the other twin said. I had no idea who to believe. I didn't know which one of them was telling the truth. I knew that I had to make a decision and there was... Where are you? He screamed. When he saw us, he came running over. Tessa, that's Sam you're with. I'm Sean. I looked at them both. What are you talking about? I asked. He locked me in my room and threw away the keys so he could take you to the prom instead of me. Sam or Sean screamed. I wasn't sure who was who. He's lying. I'm the real Sean. He's just saying that to confuse you, the other twin said. I had no idea who to believe. I didn't know which one of them was telling the truth. I knew that I had to make a decision and there was only one thing for it. This is just too hard, I said. I'm not going to date either of you. They looked at me in shock. You can't mean that, the first twin said. Why would you give up on us? We could have something really special. It's twins that share something special, and I don't want to be the ones that come between you two, I said. I think it's better that we just stay good friends. So that's what we ended up doing. Oh, and in case you were wondering, I never did find out which twin I actually went to the prom with. If you think you know which one it was, let me know in the comments below. But before I go on, make sure you like and subscribe and hit that notification bell, and then you'll definitely meet your dream date.
I grew up in a small town in the middle of nowhere. There wasn't so much as a Target, let alone anything interesting for a teenager like myself to spend their days. So when my dad told me we would be going on a trip to a campsite, I jumped on board immediately. It would only be myself and my dad. My mom had passed away 5 years ago. You see, my mom had died whilst hiking in the woods. We never found her body, but a knife had been found at the scene with her blood on it. The police confirmed she had been murdered. They managed to catch the criminal who killed her. I didn't know who the murderer was, nor why they did it. I was still traumatized from it. I missed her, every day. But I was still beyond excited. I loved my dad, and I was looking forward to a weekend away with him. We packed our bags, hopped in the car, and started driving. My dad never told me where we were going. He said it would be a surprise. I was just happy to get out of the house. We drove and drove for what seemed like days, but was probably only a few hours. Eventually, we reached the campsite. I wrinkled my nose as we stepped out of the car. The cabin where we were going to be staying at was all run down and derelict. I was surprised it was still standing. Its wood seemed infested with termites. "Do we really have to stay here?" I asked my dad. He ruffled my hair. "Come on, sport. It isn't that bad," he chuckled. It looked pretty bad to me, but I kept my mouth shut, and we brought our things into the cabin. Then something strange happened. My dad was back in the cabin, unpacking our bags, and he asked me to grab a blanket from the trunk. As I made my way back to the car, I felt someone move behind me. I turned around to find this woman standing in front of me, eyes bulging in their sockets, staring me dead in the face. She was wearing what seemed to be an old jumpsuit, orange in color. Was she a prisoner? "Can I help you?" I asked nervously. She just kept staring at me. Then she opened her mouth. "Is he here?" she asked in a shaky voice. I didn't understand her question, so I didn't reply. She took a step forward and I freaked out. I sprinted into the cabin, shutting the door with a bang. I peeked out through the curtains, watching her cautiously. She hadn't moved from the spot. She was just standing there. A wooden board creaked behind me and I jumped. I whirled around only to find it was just my dad. "What is it?" he asked, worried. I explained to him about the young woman and how she was wearing the clothes of a prisoner. After my panicked story, my dad just blinked at me. He didn't seem fazed at all. Then he asked me where she was. I was confused, but I pointed out the window to where the woman was still standing. As he peeked through the curtains, I thought I saw something change in his gaze. He looked different to the man who had raised me. His cheer. Then he asked me where she was. I was confused, but I pointed out the window to where the woman was still standing. As he peeked through the curtains, I thought I saw something change in his gaze. He looked different to the man who had raised me. His cheery expression seemed to melt away into something unrecognizable. But then the expression disappeared and he turned back to me, calmly. "Oh, don't worry about her," he said. My dad moved from the window, humming as he stepped into the kitchen. "Do you want something to eat?" he asked me as if nothing had happened. I was still so confused. Why had my dad not reacted the same way? There was a prisoner outside our cabin, possibly an escapee. She could be dangerous. We really should call the police. But so far as my dad was concerned, we were fine. I didn't understand any of it. This was supposed to be a nice holiday with my dad, but it had turned into something way scarier. And my dad was acting so strange. I didn't want to be a crybaby, but I wanted to go home. It wasn't until the next morning that things got really strange. I'm usually a late sleeper, so when I heard my dad get up that morning, I didn't think much of it. That is, when I looked at the clock and realized it was 6 a.m. That was really early for my dad. Curious, I followed him downstairs and glanced out the window. There was the crazy woman again, the prisoner, and I felt my jaw drop as I realized she was speaking to my dad. They chatted like they'd known each other for years. My dad had some food with him, and he gave it to the woman. I couldn't believe my eyes. She was a prisoner. What was my dad doing? When my dad returned, I decided to confront him about it. "Why are you talking to that woman?" I demanded. "Can't you see she's a criminal?" My dad was shocked to find out I had seen everything, but he calmed down. "Josh, there's something I need to tell you." "What is it?" My dad took a deep breath. "I'm in love with her." I took a step back. "What?" "I'm in love with that woman," he repeated. "Look, after your mother died, I've been lonely. I met Sharon and I fell in love. But she got mixed up in some bad business and now she's on the run and I have to help her. I have to." I couldn't believe what my ears were telling me. Was my dad losing it? "But Dad, why didn't you ever tell me about her?" I asked. "Because I thought you would get mad. I didn't want you to think Sharon was replacing your mom." But Dad, she's a criminal. We can't help her. Please, Josh, I'm in love with her. Just do this for me, please. I hesitated. Logic told me this was a bad idea. She was a criminal, for God's sake.